Welcome to the Gunnersville Grassroots Podcast. Today is June the 11th of 2024. Trey is here.
I'm here.
Again.
Yep.
He's almost like a regular this year. I'm not sure what to make of that.
Yeah. I've been here more times than I have not, I think, maybe.
I think so. I think so. That's an improvement from last year. We're glad to have you.
Yeah.
So it's getting hot.
Mm-hmm.
And we just had a big bass splash, had an 8.3 win. 8.29, I think I rounded. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. Which was, I did a little post before it started, and several people guessed 8 something. There was some people that were like 9s or 10s, and I'm like, look, we didn't see many of them in February. I don't know. So,
no, that's what I said. I for a while, I thought a 7 something was going to win, but I was like, there's no way. Somebody will catch an 8-pounder.
And they did.
We ain't got a lot of 9s and 10s, but there's an 8-pounder out there.
Yep. Oh, I left it out. It's presented and sponsored by Rec Lending, reclending.com. If you're looking to buy a boat or an RV, they make they're kind of a broker, and they make boat loans. I used them. Good place. Check it out, reclending.com. Make sure and check those guys out. Now we'll go back to fish talk. Yep. So today we got a few things we're going to talk about. We're going to talk fishing. I've actually been fishing. And you've been fishing a little.
I've been fishing a little bit.
I've been to Gunnersville more in the last few weeks than I have in quite a while. It's pretty nice. Going in the evenings. Evening bite was much better than the morning bite, I'll say that. This cold front this last weekend and 5 gazillion people here for the splash pretty much bopped them in the head.
Yeah.
It was pretty tough. Friday and Saturday were that north wind. And man, to put on a sweatshirt in June. You ever had to do that?
Mm-mm. Not many times.
Not many. I mean, like it was 58 degrees.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty nice fishing like it. But
yeah, I was about to say, I think this year's been a weird year for fishing. I went out on Sunday, fished that evening tournament after the
Sunday
bass.
Afternoon.
Yeah, after that was over. And it was just, dude, I think a lot of the fish are so far behind this year. Like, I don't think a lot of them have moved out yet off the bank. Like, I think the majority of them still on the bank. I really do.
A lot of them are. There had been some move out before that last big rain. Like I had found some, on the true river ledge stuff, 15, 20, but it wasn't many, but they were pretty good ones. And then that flood, or I'll say flood, it was summertime flood. River got muddy and got to really rolling like 70 or 80,000, and they left. And
yeah,
have not
I was about to say the same thing. When I was out there for the food land, I had found it was about typical beginning of May. There was getting some out there, still wasn't a whole lot, but they were getting out there. And then, like you said, when they pulled 130,000 for 4 days straight,
they're gone.
They're gone. They were all
like
gone.
That.
Yep.
And then we had this little willfly hatch happen this weekend.
That throws a kink in things too.
It does. And I did not see very many upriver, but on Saturday I put in at Browns Creek, and dude, it was covered up. So, but I had a buddy that on Sunday, the fishing, his offshore fish had just left and he just couldn't catch them. And he picked up a popper at noon and had one almost 5 that he got a check with in the splash and had 8 bites between 12 and 130 on a popper. Yeah, just random 8 foot of water stuff. His dad's like, you need to put on a worm, catches it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Like I had that thought in my head and I just could not make myself do it. You just kick yourself sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
You get too stubborn set in your ways.
Yep.
And today we're going to have a repeat visitor. Mr. Mikeyballz has joined us before. Good dude. Had some interesting events and social media blow-ups over some stuff that's happened at the Big Bass Splash. Got accused of happening at the Big Bass Splash, I would say. And Mikey was part of that. He saw some things, and we've talked about it, and I've got some more information to share with him that he didn't have. But first off, dude fishes all the time, and he's a hammer. So, let's see what he's got to offer. And he made a post the other day where he flipped up a 25-pound bag, and I went, okay. And I'm not real wild about that anymore. I used to be, but
I love it.
You love it.
I love it.
That grass is getting there.
It is
in places.
Yep.
So, and heck, you could probably do that a lot easier than you could have gone and tried to fish offshore this weekend because it was a zoo.
Yep. I heard it was a zoo out there.
I got a picture. I don't know how to get to it, but there was, I think, the Point of Pine Island, like it looked like a parking lot. That Friday morning, I came out of waterfront and headed up the river a little ways and looked over there, and it was completely surrounded. Like, come out with your hands up. The fish just stuck.
That's insane. Insane.
Somebody probably caught a check there. I mean, I don't understand it, but let's see if we can get Mr. Mikey on here and talk for a little bit. I have got my buddy Mikeyballz on here. Mikey, thank you for coming back and joining us again.
Well, thanks for having me back, dude. I'm glad I didn't get canceled this time. I might get canceled this time. We'll see. But,
Yeah,
but
the goal is to stop any kind of cancellation of anybody. Can't we all just get along?
Yeah.
So,
right? It's more go fishing, bro.
yeah, dude. I went fishing for 3 days. Well, 4 really. And I'm not gonna lie to you. I'll be 49 next month. And I woke up yesterday and felt like somebody had beat me with a 2x4 after standing up for 4 days straight.
That good kind of hurt, though. You know,
it was.
I did something.
Yeah, it was enjoyable. The weather, the fish didn't care for that cold front Friday and Saturday. Not for me anyway. But Sunday was a little better. But you know,
how's that new boat treating you?
Man, I have to say I like it.
Yeah,
I do. I do. Everything except that payment. You know.
Yeah.
But no, it's so far so good. It's ready for its break-in service. I'm glad you said that. I got to call and get that scheduled. But yeah, I've enjoyed it. It's I guess a long time coming. I mean, the one I had was almost as old as Trey.
And look at what you got now.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
Trey likes it. Trey.
When I seen it rolling into the boat ramp the other day, I was like, man, that boat's freaking pretty.
It's a chameleon. Somebody asked me what color it is, and I said, well, depends on which way the sun's shining. It changes. You know, it can be dark. It can be shiny.
I noticed that when you were pulling in, one side looked black and the other side looked silver. Just because of the shade.
It's a chameleon.
Yeah.
That's the color I'm going to tell them. It's chameleon. I like that. I've been in that old white Procraft with talons on it for so long. I mean, not that there's not 3 people that cared what I was doing, but it stuck out just a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
So Mikey, tell us about your fishing escapades. I saw something about you flipped up some pretty good ones the other day. Is that happening already?
You know, there's a little bit of a flipping bite, dude. Not all those fish were flipping fish. Some were ledge fish and that. It's interesting because every time I think I understand this lake, it changes. And I'll tell you what, this year, it's a totally different endeavor than the past 2 years of fishing offshore. You know, we've had all this rain. We've had all this current. You know, and it doesn't even feel like summer yet. It hadn't been like above 90 for more than like a day, you know? So it's just been a completely different experience, but they're out there. And what's kind of cool, I think they saw it in some of the big bass splashes, guys are catching them shallow, they're catching them mid-depth, and they're catching them deep. There's kind of something for everybody right now, dude, which is pretty cool out there for being June.
Yeah, no, there for sure is, and it makes it a little harder to run into a bunch of them, I think, you know. But I mean, I had 10 rods on my deck from a pop-R to a deep diving crankbait, you know, and I didn't catch fish on a pop-R, but I was telling Trey before we got you on here, like I had a buddy on Sunday that says I just give up on this offshore stuff, and he picked up a pop-R and went in a creek and caught a 5-pounder and had 7 more bites in an hour and a half on a pop-R and 8 foot of water over the grass. It was 3 foot under the surface, and I was like, well, that sounds pretty fun. You know?
Yeah, I mean, that's been my experience. And I have seen exactly what you're talking about. The offshore deal, if you're willing to commit to it, which you almost need to, kind of like a flipping bite, like they're there. They're just, it's not going to be 100 of them. It's not even going to be like 20 of them. Like a lot of times it's 5 of them, 10 of them, you know, and they might be scattered out, and you really got to play. I guess you got to be detail oriented, for lack of a better word, and really pick it apart. But it's fun, man. Like, I don't know. And the grass is setting up. You know how much I love to flip. That grass, like the amount of hydrilla that's coming back in just the little time that I've lived here, 4 or 5 years. Like, I'm seeing hydrilla in places that were totally eelgrass or totally that pond grass and stuff like that. And if that hydrilla starts taking over in some of those areas, like, dude, we're going to have great spawns. We're going to have great sustainable, like, you know, ecosystems for bait fish and that. It's just going to make the lake even better than it is, which would be hard to beat.
I was about to say, that's scary to think it could be better than it is, because as much pressure as this place get, dude, it puts out some bags. Like, you look at tournament weights, and we don't have the 8 to 10 pounders, but there's so many 4 to 6 pounders in this place. It's unreal.
Bunches. And we had a we had a biologist on for TVAs. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was the guy. Yeah, I had the TVA guy, you know, that was over the grass treatment for TVA sometime last month, I think. And he said the same thing you just said. You know, he's really seeing some of the eelgrass starting to sparse out in places, and the hydrilla coming back. And of course, they like the hydrilla better because it's controllable in the areas that it needs to be controlled, whereas the eelgrass is still a mystery, you know, as to how to take care of it. But yeah, it really has.
From my perspective, just a Florida perspective, eelgrass is great and it makes for like a great winter bite and a pre-spawn bite. But the one thing that's true here, it seems, and in Florida, yes, you do catch them during the summer, but like if you're looking for that all year round kind of awesomeness, it lies in the hydrilla, dude.
I
Like the
agree.
hydrilla is the key. Like you can catch them all year round in the eelgrass, no doubt about it. It just seems like that hydrilla just provides a better year-round fishery for bigs and consistency across the board.
I agree. What's your favorite flipping setup for
I always have two, man, and that just comes from me being in Florida and things. You got to be real, I guess, detail oriented. I run a one, and this is I'm a map guy. Like I'll do some dangling, put a stick bait on or a creature bait on a 3/8 or a half, and go pitch strands and like open holes and stuff. But my deal is a 1 1/4 and a 1 1/2. I got one on a 7/6 Halo. And then I got another on a 711 Halo TI heavy action, and just like 80-pound samurai braid, big old straight shank hook snelled on there. And then the one thing I've learned up here is you really have to play between a bait that has appendages that kick and one that doesn't, because it's going to be one or the other. Either they want something that's active, that's waving at them and doing stuff, or they want that just like bulleting, torpedoing down through the mat, going down there and doing absolutely nothing. Like it's not in between.
It just depends on the day.
Yeah.
So, I guess at this point we're going to address the elephant in the room. We had, you made a video on Sunday about some dead fish floating from the Big Bass Splash. There had been some other folks make some videos, and it's kind of turned into a storm that, in my opinion, not necessarily deserved. Is it going to create some changes? Absolutely. But, tell us what you saw, and then we'll just get into the conversation.
So I wasn't looking for trouble. I guess we'll start it with that. But
that's not your style, I know.
That's not my style. I'm like I'm a millennial, kind of non-conflict. I'll stand where I need to stand, but in the end, I want to go fishing and be left alone. And I think that's probably 90% of us. Some of us are looking for problems. Others, I got enough problems to deal with on my own. But basically, me and the girl went out to Gunnersville after doing some work on our Airbnb, and dropped in at Mink and idled out. Basically, you run out of Mink, as everybody knows. And if you want to get to the river, you got two chutes. Either you kind of go around and go south of Mink, or you run up towards Goose Pond and you take that little boat channel that runs out to the main lake. And we opted to go north, and we were running towards Goose Pond on the inside. And I noticed just some like light colored things floating around. I'm like, huh. And I knew the Big Bass Splash was going on. So we kind of came off pad and looked, and immediately I saw probably 4 or 5 dead fish just kind of like laying in that open area. And I'm like, that sucks, but it is what it is. Like, it's going to happen with big tournament. As long as it isn't like craziness, like it is what it is. And so basically when I stopped, I put the trolley down and started like looking around, and I'm not going to lie, man, like the fish were everywhere dead. Like, it wasn't just those few ones. There was like another 4 or 5, like about 150 yards from me. There was a group of like 2 of them. Those are the ones that really made me sad, because there were 2 fish that were like 5 to 6. When they died, it's tough to tell how big they actually were because they blowed out and that. But in the end, there was a scattering of a whole bunch of dead fish. I counted 25. I think there were more. I only stayed in that one little 30-yard strip and kind of looked around with my eyes. I did notice the pontoon, which is the release boat for the Big Bass Splash, picking up fish towards the boat ramp area. But basically, I shot a video saying, hey, I know it's a big tournament. I know this is going to happen. This sucks. I don't know whose fault it is. I think everybody's kind of to blame. Time of year, there's a whole, which we'll discuss. But obviously, we all need to be better when it comes to fish care, and it's as simple as that. And that's going to be my general philosophy throughout. Like, we need to do better. But there were a lot of dead fish, man, and it was a little bit shocking.
And I won't argue about the dead fish. I mean, they're there, right? And it happens. And I will say this. When I pulled up to Goose Pond on Thursday, which was the day before the thing started, there was dead fish there before our turn, before the Sealy even started. There were dead fish up there in the eelgrass. There were dead fish hanging off the. If you've been to the dock at Goose Pond, they've got that cross member that runs around there. I always use that as my water level indicator. There's like a 2x6 or 2x8 right there, and that's how I always look at. But there was fish carcasses hanging over that. So that there were dead fish that were already there. The ones that one dude posted, and I'm not going to say his name because I don't know him, and I think he's just trying to promote himself. Not you. I'm not talking about you. But there was some fish that Sealy Outdoors. Let me start this. I have talked to Sealy Outdoors. I've talked to Chris Bennett that runs the tournament. He called me this morning, and he said, "Look, did we make some mistakes? Possibly. We were doing the same thing that we did on Fork and other places. He said we had recirculating boats." We had recirculators in our release boat. We released the fish every hour. He said, we're not holding on to them. We put them in the boat. And he said, now there was a video a guy took of us picking up fish. And he said, those fish are not our fish because we Sealy Outdoors did not let any fish go at the dock. He said there were anglers coming in that would say, oh, I'm not going to weigh it and throw a fish back. And he said, and there were fish already there, which is what I was just saying, when we got there. And there's been a tournament on Wednesday. There was 2 tournaments last weekend at least out of Goose Pond. It happens. It's July. As you said, the bottom line is we all need to do better. And, the fact that a handful of trolls on the internet, and that's what I'm going to call them, trolls. And if you listen to this, you're a troll. If you just make a post once a year right before a tournament comes, and then you go post up a bunch of pictures of yourself holding 4 or 5 that you made just to put on social media, you're a damn troll. All right? I'm ruffling feathers. I ruffled feathers on this last podcast with the state. We might as well keep going. So that's a whole nother story. But but anyway, Mike, what's your opinion there? I mean, we got to do better.
I think we got to do better. I mean, I put up a YouTube video. I guess I'm not one to point fingers, but I also think it's important to, take responsibility. And as an angler, I take responsibility. I need to make choices when it comes to fish management and fish care because, I fish a few little ABAs out of Goose Pond, the last year I did. I'm planning on doing the same this year. And in my opinion, it's a very grassroots thing. All of us are super stubborn and independent. We're not going to listen to people telling us what to do. But the reality is the change, if we want to preserve this and really kind of forward this resource and make it continue on into the future, it literally starts with one person making a choice to take the extra couple minutes to, throw some G-juice in the live well, to, freeze those water bottles and drop them in there maybe once an hour, once every hour and a half in your live well, gassing fish, fizzing fish, and even the hardest decision, letting one go when you don't think she's going to hold out, in making the decision to kind of take the loss for the greater good, for lack of a better word. At the same time, though, there is something to be said for, this tournament was run in June, and I've talked to a few guys who I trust, and, they've had experiences it varies because the seasons change a little with different timing here. And that post-spawn deal into early ledge season, that May, June time, it varies when it is. But for a lot of them, they told me about experiences where they did have a lot of trouble keeping fish alive. So the timing of the tournament was definitely an issue that played into this. There's also, the format question. I think it's a great benefit to the local communities. It brings a bunch of money in. It's a bunch of tax dollars, which go to our boat ramps, which go to management projects and things like that. But the reality is there's fish being weighed in. Yes, they released them with a release boat. I've heard things said about there not being oxygen or aerators on that release boat. They were in an aluminum tank in the sun. But then if guys are coming and seeing that they're not going to be able to weigh a fish that has value or will, hold a place when it comes to that hourly weigh-in, and if they're dumping fish outside the boat ramp, I mean, that is an administrative problem as much as it's an angler problem too, right? So obviously there's something that needs to be fixed there. So I'm not going to let anybody off the hook, but I'm also not the one to hold people responsible. I think it starts at the individual basis and moves forward from there. But it's definitely an issue, Pat. I guess I'd say that. Something needs to change, in order to, you can't alleviate this 100%, but, to reduce the impact, I think is an important way to look at it.
Sure. Now, they did have aerators in that boat.
They did.
They brought that boat with them. It had 2 or 3. As far as it being aluminum, if you drive to Decatur right now to the Bassmaster Elite's tank that's set up on their release boat, it's aluminum too. It may have an oxygen system in it. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that, but it's aluminum. I've been on the BFL's release boat tagging fish. It's aluminum. They're all aluminum. They weren't keeping them in there that long. And I'm not saying that there wasn't things that could have been done. I will say this. A large part of the people that fish the Big Bass Splash come from out of town, and a lot of the people that fish it are not your every weekend tournament anglers that really spend a lot of time focusing on fish care. I'm not saying those people don't care, but a lot of people just don't have the background. See, at the sign up registration, and at the Sealy thing, when it started on Thursday at 12 o'clock, they were out there on the microphone going over, hey, take care of your fish. Here's some G-Juice sample. If you don't have G-Juice, here's some G-Juice. They're trying. Now, you mentioned something that I believe is probably very true. Normally by now, and it kind of touches on what we talked about earlier, the fish are normally a little farther along than they are right now. I think we do have a lot of still kind of stressed out post-spawn fish, and that's just timing that happened. And, that's, normally right now it's dead summer, and the fish are fat and healthy. But no, I agree. I caught a fish last week on one of those kind of first out places that looked like it had just finished spawning. Still bloody on the side, tail. And I mean, so I think it's a culmination of things. And I agree, you don't let anybody off the hook, but it starts with the angler, because Sealy had those fish for 20 minutes or less than an hour. Let's say less than an hour. They were emptying their boat every hour. And most of the fish come in the last 15 or 20 minutes. So, they had them for less than an hour. The anglers had them forever. If Sealy gets brought a fish that's in shitty condition, there's only so much they can do. So, that's just bigger picture.
I mean, I don't know how to put it. Obviously, I think we all need a little more information. I understand that you talked with Sealy and that, but I'll tell you this too, Pat. Like, I was out there and I shot that video and I stood out there for 30 minutes I believe that was between 10 and 11 o'clock. And their release boat wasn't on the dock. It was scooping fish. So you can't tell me that release boat had fish in it, because they were going straight in there because they were scooping fish. There were dead fish floating around.
Right. I don't know if they'd already let them go or whatever, but
but what I'm saying though is whether they let them go or not, they're still out there floating around. If they let the weight go from 9 to 10 and they're floating around there at 10:30, the fish that are getting weighed at the scale are not going into that release boat directly. I don't know if they have holding bins up there and stuff that they transfer them out of, but I'm not trying to.
Oh, no, I agree with
argue with it, but like, every story to side, dude, and we're all gonna kind of skew the story so that it fits more into the narrative that we want to forward. And I'm not saying you got a narrative, but like, I know Sealy has a narrative, and I'm not saying that they're lying about anything. That's not the wrong approach. But what I'm saying is we're gonna present our best foot,
Absolutely.
And it's not their fault. Like, I really don't think it's their fault. I think in the end, the moral of the story is, and I kind of highlighted this in my video, like, we're all proud of ourselves when we win a tournament. We're proud of ourselves when we figure out like a little pattern on the lake and all that. Like, I know I'm all jacked up and stoked, being someone who moved here from another place. Like, this fishery and seasons, like, for me, was a totally left field new thing to understand. So every time I kind of figure out a seasonal pattern in that, I'm super stoked and I'm proud of myself. But that level of pride and that feeling of accomplishment, that needs to carry over from not only figuring out how to fish this lake, how to catch big, how to catch fish, pattern the lake, etc. It needs to carry over to where it's applying to our fish care and our fish management. We need to be just as proud of that as we are of weighing in a freaking dirty 30, And that's the thing, and that lies on the angler level and the tournament administrative level.
I think it should even lie a little further than that, because you just led me to where I wanted to go. I think it should lie on some local level city type stuff. The city of Scottsboro owns Goose Pond, and they host how many tournaments out there? People, big events that are coming there. Most places don't have a release boat at all. They just throw them off the dock. And that may have been what they were doing with the ones that if the release boat wasn't there at the moment, obviously picking up dead fish wasn't in their agenda. But, I think, and so I'll say this: we had the last podcast we did. We were talking about fish stocking, and I put a little charge out there. I said, "Hey, if you know somebody that you think can make a difference with this, hit us up. Trey needs a job." And and
trying to get them employed.
And so, unbeknownst to me, and this is the first time I've mentioned this other than to a few people, unbeknownst to me, somebody from the fisheries department of the state of Alabama listened to my podcast and spent probably half a day putting together a very detail-oriented email that basically was talking about why stocking doesn't work and this, that, and that's a whole nother deal. We had a very polite conversation back and forth. I thought I really just made the dude mad because he was not a big fan of the share lunker program. But back to my original thing, if somebody's listening that's got power with the city of Scottsboro, tell them to put together a pontoon with a release tank on it with a fish lung system in it, or whatever your choice is. Trey's a fish lung guy, and are you a believer?
I am, and there's a couple things I got, and the first things first, I want to say you're never going to make everybody happy.
No.
Right. So before I get into this, could the fishermen do better? Absolutely. Could Sealy's do better? Absolutely. But I look at it from one thing. Well, it's a time of the year thing. All the fish are stressed out. They're getting moved out deep. But the same guy that made one of the posts on Facebook that says, "Hey, this is bull crap. We're killing all these fish." He's going to be mad if you move it away from June because he likes to fish out deep. Now he's going to comment that now, but then so you're never going to make everybody happy. But I do think, I think everybody's got to play a part in it. I think the fishermen's got to do better. I think they could do better. I think everybody could do better. But one positive thing to take away from it is obviously everybody cares about the lake. Look at it that way. Yeah, some people are griping, whatever, but we all care about the lake. I think it's good that people are trying to look out and say, hey, this is not good for the lake. Like I said, because we all love to fish here. It's a great lake. I don't know. I just think this time of the year, you got to baby those fish. You got to.
You do.
And if it would be better on the fish to trailer to weigh in instead of driving them from Browns Creek to Goose Pond and wake boat waves. There's so much variables that go into it. And like you said, when a fish gets there and he's in bad shape already, there's just not much at that point, as weak as that fish already is, for them to do to get them back.
Throw it in a cooler and let somebody eat it.
There's just, so I think everybody can, do their part here to make it better, but I think a lot of it's just the time of the year thing. But
Sealy will not be back in June. The only reason they were here in June this year was because the weekend that they always budget for this was Easter. Mm-hmm. And then the last time they were here in June, if it was last year or the year before, was because it corresponded with the Classic, which was in Knoxville, and they didn't want to compete with that. Mm-hmm. So that's that.
And I think that goes a long way. But look, I know some of those guys over there that they're not trying to harm a lake. They care just as much about it as we do. I just think, like I said, there's only so much we all can do.
Absolutely. No, if you're going to have tournaments in June,
some are going to die. Some are going to die. Should it be a substantial amount? Absolutely not.
They weighed over 1,200 fish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if 50 or 100 died, is that too many? I don't know. You tell me. If you had a 350 boat high school tournament, which happens all the friggin' time somewhere, and they happen all summer long, July, August, September, not just here, but other lakes, those probably do more damage than that because, you're looking at 5 fish at a time. Now, they may not all be 4 or 5 pounds. There is a difference there. We're killing our trophies, right? Yeah, but.
I think that's what makes it such a tough conversation is because the way that the format of the tournament is, you're bringing in the biggest one you catch all day.
Yeah.
So if one does die, it's going to be between the 4 to 6 pound class. So it hurts, it hurts to see, but I don't think you could stick the blame on one individual. I think it kind of goes on down the line, but I don't know. It's tough because I care about the lake just as much as everybody else, but it's just tough because this time of the year, I got a fish lung system in my boat. I use G-Juice. I use ice. But I'm out there a whole lot more than some of the guys that might fish that. No, right. That's not a shot at them. I'm just saying no. I do take care of my fish, and I'll spend more time fishing a tournament in the summertime back there, like I normally have a partner. If me and you are fishing, I'd say, hey, you keep catching, I'm going to baby these fish. If they start to turn over, I'll put a fin clip on them. They start doing this, I'll take the coil tag off them. If I need to add more ice, I'll add more. Like, I'll sit back there for 2 hours and never make a cast, babying them. And like he said earlier, which was a good point, I'm the type of guy that if I catch a 6-pounder and I know in my mind that it's not going to make it to weigh in, I'll throw it back.
Didn't you do that this year?
Yeah, I've done that.
You told me
I
that.
fished Tuesday night or Sunday evening, and I had like 28 pounds in the box, and they were all looking so terrible. I knew and look, it was a Sunday evening tournament. I might have won $180. I wasn't gonna kill almost 30 pounds of fish for $180. So I threw all of them back, went back home. That's just me. I just think, like I said, you can't put the blame on one person.
Yeah. And then, of course, I talked to Paul Ponder at GTO about this earlier today and told him that I was talking to you, Mike. And the one thing we agreed on is, like, he's like a level-headed, normal kind of dude. You can carry on a real conversation with him. He's not going to go off on some crazy tangent, and because you're not that guy. I mean,
no, man, nothing gets done when you behave like that, man.
Well, here's the thing. We all got great points, right? Like, I can see his side. I can see your side. I can see my side. I can see parts of the guys on Facebook side. Like, everybody's got good points. It's just the way some people portray it is so negative because it's so much easier to be negative than it is positive.
It is so easy on the internet to just click a button and share without putting much thought into what you're really doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes way beyond fishing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but
I do want to say this, just, hey, isn't it, because this is something, like, I think, as tournament anglers, like, this is kind of like the worst thing that can happen, right? Like, this is, then maybe your boat breaking down or something like that. But for us, like, this is the worst thing that could happen. And it's not something like we're proud of, right? Like, this isn't like a positive thing. Like you said, it's a negative thing, but I don't think it's something that gets highlighted. And I think that's one thing that we need to be honest with ourselves on. You mentioned, like, the high school tournaments and things along those lines. Like, the last thing you're going to show, especially in, like, a youth event, is the dead fish floating around. And I think it happens, but, like, you don't highlight it, you kind of just brush by and, like, these kids are doing a good thing. And I think that's what was important in this situation. That's why I didn't want to start anything when I put up that video. I wanted just people to know, hey, there's consequences. And Trey, you made a good point. I think everybody kind of plays a role. I don't think there's one finger you can point, but it happens. And I think we as anglers, it's like what do you always talk about? The addicts, when you're an addict, like, the very first step that you take, and I'm not saying we are, but just as a metaphor, as an analogy, we need to acknowledge the fact that, these events do have consequences. Now, how do we alleviate those consequences to the best point that we can while still having the event, enjoying the event? But I don't think this gets acknowledged, like, to the extent that it's actually happening. That's just my 2 cents, because it doesn't fit into the narrative of what we're doing and, like, the positivity and the fun of it, So I think we got to be honest with ourselves that we do need to do better and be better and do better, because it'll actually benefit us and the anglers that come after us down the road,
Hence the reason I want to challenge the city of Gunnersville and the city of Scottsboro to put release boats that they own, that they use them, put them where they're usable for these bigger tournaments. Now, because everybody doesn't have one. The BFL has one, which, I'll be honest with you, most of the time they sit there and check the fish okay and dump them right there at the dock. But they have one, because I got on it and tagged. It's awesome. I would love for them to have them, just because and have them in February, because it's easier for me to do my thing. But if they they're a little selfish deal there. But like if they care, and because bottom line is, one of y'all said this earlier, it brings in a lot of money, right? That's the deal. Yeah. They're paying money for them to come. But you had Angler's Choice here in March. You have all these different things. Why do we not have a release boat sitting at 2 or 3 places across the lake that the powers that be are funding? I mean, Trey and I can't afford one. So
yeah, exactly.
But that's
kind of interesting, because I'll tell you honestly, like we pay lodging tax to Gunnersville for our Airbnb, and, like, it's not expensive, but it's definitely, like, above and beyond all the other taxes we got to pay. So, like, there is something to be said for, like, where are some of these tax allotments going? Like, could you segment part of a budget to like towards something like that? I think the problem that you run into is the different municipalities and then the different counties, because I believe Scottsboro
It's Jackson County.
Yeah, it's in a different county. So you got two counties butting up against, and I know just from a logistics and a bureaucratic standpoint, like that does get messy,
No, that's why I think they each have their own. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they get along for a whole lot of sharing things. And I grew up in Scottsboro and Jackson County, and Gunnersville was the enemy. Yeah, that's the whole high school football thing. Yeah, and I didn't play that, but I mean, they were just one of those towns down the road. Trey grew up in a small town. He knows the same one. I don't know what your enemy was, but you had one.
Yeah, we got a bunch of them.
You got a bunch of them. All right, yeah. So, but I don't know that you'll ever get a collaboration there. I wish you could, but the Mountain Lakes Chamber of Commerce, which I believe is strictly Jackson County, they could find enough budget from all the money that gets brought in these things to do something to help. So, I'm gonna consider this a challenge to them of one of the 6 people that listens to this thing. Which, if you're the same guy that knew somebody at the state, tell somebody at the city to buy a damn boat. And look, you can probably sell ads on the side of it. Hey, give us $1,000, $1,000 a year, and we'll put your ad on it. It's going to sit at Goose Pond all year. I mean,
well, even take some angler funds and doing it. Like, I'm willing to throw $50 at that, and like that's not that much. But I mean, hell, we had 1,000 entries for the big bass thing. I know a lot of those guys were out of staters, but still. You put a bunch of guys together, put a little collection pot at GTO and Waterfront, and it's actually for a cause that goes somewhere and helps.
Yeah, apparently bass stocking doesn't work, so maybe we can just try harder to save the ones we've got.
I don't want to talk about that.
No, we're going to talk about that one day, but we don't have time today because you got somewhere to be, and so do I. But
well, that's true. I will say this though. One of the reasons I gravitate towards fishing is I am kind of like a loner, hermity, independent.
Yeah.
Stubborn cuss. And I think that's part of fishing that draws some of us in, because like that's our character, that's our personality. And fishing is, you have your buddies, you have your network and that, but you're out there because you're driven and you're motivated to do something on your own and achieve and figure things out and kind of, fight your way through it. And that's why I think, Trey, what you said resonated so much with me is like, in the end, change, it sounds so generic and political, but change starts at an individual grassroots level. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, you can get that release boat going and that, but in the end, if Joe Blow, who's an awesome angler, isn't taking care of the 25 pounds, 28 pounds that he's catching on this awesome lake that kicks out giants, like that's where the problem starts. Because the big one, I want to protect the big ones, especially for genes, for just, for everybody to enjoy. And I think that change, and like, I'm not one that like, you can't tell somebody what to do. I'm a strong believer in that. Like, it's funny because I'll run into situations with a girl where I'm like, you should really do that way. And then I catch myself and I'm like, there's no way in hell she's going to listen to me when I frame it up like that. Like, I need to figure out a way to suggest something to her, to get her to see my perspective and to kind of get her to be a part of the way I think, instead of forcing her into the line that I'm in. Because really, we don't react to that. We don't react well to that. But if there's some way we can get people to just be better conservators, see kind of like the bigger picture, like I think that's the big game. If we got a ton of anglers, if we have 70% of anglers who are like, dude, these fish matter. Like, what happens like in 3 weeks, 4 months from now, how this lake is matters to me. I'm invested in what this place fishes like 1 year down the road. You have anglers that are going to look at every fish in their live well, every fish they catch as this, not a commodity, but like a living thing, not a person. It ain't no person, don't get me wrong, but as something that really has value to them intrinsically, and they're going to treat it as such. And I think that's the biggest game. Like, that change starts on the ground level, and we really need to value this and see how much just joy it brings every single one of us, and make sure we're treating it with that amount of respect, or just that amount of looking forward and protection,
No, I agree. And that's what one of my biggest, and before I say this might sound bad. Somebody might comment about me on Facebook after saying this. I'm not meaning it bad. It's not any kid's fault at all, but that's one of my biggest things. I always said if I was a high school or a college fishing coach, the first thing I would teach is not to skip a dock. It'd be to take care of your fish, because Now, look, most of the people that might have killed some in the Sealy's tournament, they were probably 40, 50, 60 years old. It's not the kids' fault. I'm just saying it does start way down the line.
There's a lot of things that start way down the line with the kids.
Exactly. And I'm at fault for this because I've been fishing an open before and just kind of went out there. It's 5:30 in the morning. I'm like, all right, start casting. And before I know it, 6 casts in a row, I got 25 pounds in the box. And then I think, crap, Trey, now you got to keep them alive. You know
all
what I mean?
day.
You know what? And all day, and then
not with you, bro.
well, yeah, that might have happened like once in my life. I might have been exaggerating about that, but maybe like 9 pounds in the box. I'm like, all right, now you really don't want them to die because you can't afford a dead fish penalty. But like, I mean, I do the same thing, and sometimes I forget. Like, that's one of the most important parts. You got to get them all back to the weigh-in. But I do think like that is a big part that is overlooked, not on a tournament. I mean, yes, on the tournament side when you bring them back, but also just the anglers because everybody's so worried about what are they biting? Where do I need to go start? I'll get calls. Hey, do you know where they're biting on gunners? Well, where do I need to start? You know what I mean? They don't worry about the fish care part of it. Like, I do agree with you.
Are you worried about having G-juice in the boat? Are you as worried about that chatterbait as you are like having those frozen water bottles?
Mm-hmm.
Are you as worried about both pumps running in your live well? Like, do you have one pump off and you're trying to save your battery or something like that? Like, I think that's kind of the game, man. And like I said, I deal in realities, dude. I don't deal in highfalutin, I'm a little clickbaity, I'll admit that. But like, I deal in reality, and the reality is nothing's going to be perfect. But I know me as an individual, I accept that. But I do accept that you can push and strive to be as close to that perfect as you can get while still preserving reality, having fun, running these tournaments. And it's just, it takes work though. And I think that's one of the hardest parts too. Like, we want to go out there and have fun, and we don't want to do the extra work, and you have to do the extra work, man.
Yeah. We can all be better. We can all agree on that. Everybody can be better. The fishermen can be better. The tournaments could be better. The times of the year we go somewhere, everybody could be better, but I do think it starts way before we ever get to the tournament. I think I'll stand on that.
I mean, how many hours? Just how many hours have you spent in your boat doing tackle prep?
Oh, God.
Every one of us have spent a lifetime doing that, and a little bit of time cleaning your live wells, a little bit of time making sure you've got the proper tools to keep them alive. Those things matter. And Sealy Outdoors probably made sure they had the right stuff. It didn't work. Why? We'll never know. Yeah. Should they be crucified and run off the lake for it? Absolutely not. They've been coming here for, I think, 19 years or 20.
Yeah, it's not their fault. I mean, could they have done better? Absolutely. And I'm sure
they're very upset about
it. And I'm sure he'll admit, dude, could we have done better? Absolutely. But is it their fault? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But like I said, I think more than anything with this specific tournament, it was just a time of the year thing. It's tough to keep them alive because when I catch 5 and it's March out here, I'll close that live well lid and I won't check on them until I have to cull.
Because you got water.
As long as it's on recert, you throw a little bit of G-juice in there, they're good. But in May, and I'm not lying, if me and you are fishing, I'll sit back there and baby them fish while you fish. I will not cast because I'm trying to keep them alive. It takes that much effort this time of the year.
It does. Hey, Mikey, on a different note, when you were handing out that relationship advice over there, Trey's over here taking notes.
Hey, I had my notes out on my. If you got any more, I'm telling you, I could.
What is he? Oh, yeah. Listen, there's an art to that, and I'm not perfect at it yet, but I'm getting there, boy. Let me tell you, dude.
Hey, I've been married 22 years this past April, so I'm really good at pissing a woman off, but I'm pretty good at making her happy afterwards. So, yeah, the only thing we're missing now is one of those Mikeyballz virgin holes. You remember that one?
Yeah, I do remember that one.
You're gonna put me on that. Yeah, you're really hanging me on some dry. Listen, after that big bass tournament, there ain't no more virgin holes out there.
I almost threw that out there a minute ago. I'm not gonna lie to you. You teed it up, but I didn't want to interrupt at the moment because it was. And for anybody that's listening, go back and find the one we did with him before. I really, that went downhill in a hurry, but It was funny. So. Well, Mike, I think we've beat this horse. I hope that our conversation makes things better.
Man, That's the thing. I don't think we beat the horse. I think we kind of can we continue the conversation, and the fact that guys are interested in this, like you said, I don't want a bunch of dramatics and that, but like the fact that guys are aware and they're seeing it, and they're also, you know what, the other thing, and this is the word that I forgot, they're taking ownership. The fact that like Seeley called you, I think she said his name's Chris, like that's taking ownership of a situation, and like we can't change what happened, but taking ownership moving forward means they're going to be thinking about that in the future. And I know as an angler, like seeing that, like I want to take ownership. I want to take responsibility for those fish that I'm going to put in the box, you know, at that ABA I might fish. And I think that's kind of the trick. And I see even some of the guys who are watching some of these Facebook posts that are a little dramatic, I would say, but still, like, they're also saying, you know, this is my lake. Like, I fish here. I love this place. I don't want to see it go, you know, down the hole, dude. And I think that's an important step too. Like, if we take ownership, we feel like something that we value is at stake. And that's the big first step, you know?
No, I agree with that, and I agree with the dramatic. I use the word trolls, but you're being a little more polite about it. But and they're not all trolls. There are people that shared that post just because it's easy to click a button and didn't put a lot of thought into it. Some of those people were fishing the tournament. I saw them there. They weighed in fish. Did their fish live? We don't know.
Yeah,
you know, we don't know. Now I can tell you for a fact that there's an awful lot of fish that get let go in February that live, because I stuck tags in 200 of them this year. And there's been a bunch of them caught, and I've had tags caught back from 2020 this year. I had a 2020 tag caught this year that I let go at Browns Creek, got caught at Goose Pond.
Yep.
Now how Nemo got.
I agree with it. I agree with what you said though. Like that's so true. I mean, that's what everybody needs to take away from it, is the fact that, you know, they didn't mean to do it. They're taking ownership. Nobody meant to kill a bass. Nobody's ever gonna, you know. Unless they're eating them,
right.
And that's their right. People's going to do that. But nobody intentionally, Seeley's didn't intentionally kill bass, but they're saying, hey, we are taking ownership. We know that this might have been a problem. And just like you said, I guarantee you, I know some of the guys over there, they're good people. They're going to do their best to fix that from now on. And that's all you can ask for.
100%.
It's done. The fish are dead. They're not coming back. The fishermen need to know, hey, we got to do better. And Seeley's, I know, like I said, I met some of the guys over there this weekend, super nice guys, and I guarantee you they're looking at that in the future. That's all we can ask.
100%. We all make mistakes. We learn from them. We move on.
Yep.
I don't think it's worth the crucifixion that they're giving a 40-year-old organization that has done a whole lot of good for a whole lot of people.
Absolutely.
Matter of fact, there was a dude this weekend. Chris told me this today. He said it was one of the things that kind of kept him going on these kind of deals. Is he had a guy that won one of the $1,000 drawings where they didn't give out something, and he said, the guy says, "Hey, can I say something?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Man," he said, "I am a Ronald McDonald House survivor." He said, "I was sick as a kid. And if it hadn't, my parents didn't have the money to get me back and forth to the hospital. And if it hadn't been for the things that they were doing, I wouldn't be here today." And that dude just won $1,000 from a group that's raising money for that. So, you know, that had to hit home with him just a little bit. So, my point with this is, let's not crucify everybody. Let's all as Mike said, let's all take some ownership and let's all do a little better.
Absolutely. That's all we can do.
That's all we can do.
I'm on board with that, gentlemen.
Mike, thank you, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. Good chatting with you. Take care, guys.
See you, man.
Absolutely.
Bye. Well, Trey, I think we covered the bases there.
I think so too. And he had some really good points. I think we all agreed on mostly the same thing. And like I said, I'm standing firm on what I said. I think it starts way before a tournament organization. They're not the ones to blame. I mean, like I said, can they benefit if a fish lives or dies? Absolutely. Can the fishermen? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So it goes on down the line. Like I said, I just think I'm trying to be positive, but I like to look at a couple positive things. And like I said, everybody's acknowledging we have a problem. That means everybody cares about the lake. You know what I mean? So that's a good thing. Do I think some are a little bit dramatic? Absolutely.
Yeah, and we all have different views of how that should be taken care of. Some of them don't want any tournaments, and that's their right to think that. Yep. I mean, I don't care. I don't fish that many of them anymore for a variety of reasons. I enjoy the Big Bass Splash. This was my 18th year fishing it.
Like I said, we can all be better. I mean, that's all you can say. The fishermen, the tournament organizations. I mean, dude, throw it on down. Our live well systems could be better. I got the fish lung system in there, and it works wonders. I don't think I've lost any fish since I've got that fish lung put in. But could the fish lung system be better? Absolutely. And I'm sure they're sitting at their shop right now working on it, trying to make it better. You know what I mean? It goes way beyond even the fishermen, really.
It does. It does. It does. And you know, that's where I'm sitting there with hey, let's see if we can get some municipalities involved, because you know, it hurts them more than anything in the long run from a financial standpoint, because Gunnersville might be okay without fishing. Scottsboro would not.
Yep.
And I mean, Gunnersville's kind of grown into this almost destination place with some of the things they've done. It's really awesome. Scottsboro has the dirt to do it. They just haven't done it. But, you know, it'd be nice if we could get them to give back a little bit that way. And I'm going to make some phone calls beyond this and see if we can't stir somebody's pot. It probably won't happen.
Well, I mean, I think if you get in touch with the right people, and nobody can argue the fact that what brings Gunnersville and Scottsboro the most money is Lake Gunnersville. Absolutely. It's the tournaments, it's the people coming to buy hotel rooms, gas, because you know we're all fishermen. If we get down here and I forget my 10XD box at home, I'm going to walk right in there to Paul over there at GTO and I'm going to buy a whole rack full. You know, so it helps everybody down the line, and I think that they would realize that, and if they thought there was an issue with fish trying to keep the lake up so that we can, you know, withstand all these crowds, I think they'd be willing to do something. I think if you get in touch with the right person, they'll see an issue and help out.
Well, we're going to see if we can't make some progress. That's not something that happens overnight. But,
yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, I think we've about got that covered. Yeah. The fish are biting. They were funky as crap this weekend. I think it's because of the boats and then that little 58-degree morning deal. But it's summer. Take care of your fish. If you're fishing a tournament, take extra care of your fish. Trey, where are you headed next?
I am headed to Eufaula, Oklahoma, and get you a fish lung system. I'm telling you, you will not regret it. That will help a lot of this issue.
And they'd had the prices cut back on them too. So, and I know Paul's using them in his minnow tanks.
Yeah, and even if you look at it and you don't think, you know, you think, well, that's a little bit too expensive, just check them out. They're nice. Just see, you know, like I said, because look on down the line, if we want to protect our fisheries, we got to have better live well systems, and that thing is absolutely legit. Ice and G-juice go a long way, but having the right, you know, amount of water recirculating is a big deal in keeping fish alive. The amount of oxygen that you keep in your water in that hot box all day goes a long ways.
Right. Well, I think that'll do it. Trey, good luck in Oklahoma. Hopefully the tornado season's over when you head that direction.
Yeah, I'm going to be sleeping in my truck, so I might be a goner if a tornado comes.
Yeah, right. So until then, we're working on wrapping up. We only kind of run through June. I might be able to slide one more in before it's over. Probably won't have Trey here because he's going to be on the road. But until next time, enjoy the floating grass.